Well, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Ellie. I'm one of the educators at the Pine Knoll Shores Aquarium, and I am so excited because today I get to talk to you guys about my favorite animal on the entire planet. Now, this animal is an animal that's been around for over 450 million years. And they are like living dinosaurs out in the ocean. And if you couldn't guess by the picture behind me, my favorite animal is a horseshoe crab. Now, I love horseshoe crabs so much. I've got pictures of them. I have stickers on my car. And I also have this neat little horseshoe crab pin as well. So no doubt that they're my favorite. And I'm hoping that I can maybe make them your favorite as well, because they are not only prehistoric animals, they are also underwater superheroes, and they actually help us out every single day. But before we get to that, I want to tell you guys a little bit more about the horseshoe crab. And I keep saying horseshoe crab, but what's really interesting is that horseshoe crabs aren't related to crabs at all. They're actually more closely related to scorpions or spiders than they are related to crabs. But don't get too intimidated by a horseshoe crab, because while they look a little bit intimidating and they are related to scorpions and spiders, they are also incredibly gentle creatures. And there are basically no ways that this animal can hurt you. And this animal that I have here is not actually a live horseshoe crab, but this one is a molt, or an exoskeleton of a horseshoe crab. So it's just an empty shell. But I want to tell you a little bit more about the different parts of a horseshoe crab, and maybe that means they'll be a little bit less intimidating to you as well. The horseshoe crab is divided into three main segments. So we've got this top part here, which looks a lot like a horseshoe. That's where they get their name. And that has the brain in it. And then we've got this middle section here, which is like an abdomen. It's almost like a little triangle. And that's got a lot of the guts of the horseshoe crab in it, kind of like our torso does. And then this long part at the end, that part is called the telson, which is a fancy name for a horseshoe crab tail. And that telson is what makes them look so intimidating, I think. And a lot of times they get mistaken for a stingray because of that telson. But that telson only has two main purposes. It functions as a rudder, so it helps them to steer as they're crawling along the bottom. But even more important than that, horseshoe crabs swim upside down. So when they swim upside down and then they land on the bottom, that's not a good situation, because if their belly is facing up, that means that they are at risk of being eaten by a lot of different animals. If they're right side up, they've got that nice hard shell to keep them protected. So what a horseshoe crab will do is it will use its telson to push against the bottom of the ocean and flip itself right side up. So when it lands upside down, it can turn itself over to make sure that it's not being eaten by anything. That is really, really smart and a really great adaptation for these guys. Then another thing that we tend to hear about a lot are the legs of the horseshoe crab. Now, the legs of the horseshoe crab are really cool. They've got a few different types. These bigger ones that you can see here, those ones are the walking legs. So they've got those pinchers, and those pinchers feel kind of like a baby if it were to squeeze your finger. So definitely nothing to worry about. But then they've got these two itty bitty pinchers right there. And those two itty bitty pinchers are feeding legs. So what they will do is they will grab on to different types of food. Horseshoe crabs can eat pretty much anything, but they tend to eat smaller animals like small clams or worms. And what they will do is they will shove that food into their mouth using those teeny tiny legs. So the only main purpose for those two teeny tiny legs are just to shove food into the horseshoe crab's mouth. And then there's a really cool other type of leg, and that's right down there at the back. That type of leg is for digging and for burrowing, because when horseshoe crabs need to rest, what they do is they will burrow under the sand, and that way they're a little bit more camouflaged so that any predators that are around can't see them while they're resting. And then the last, sometimes intimidating thing about an animal is going to be its mouth. Nobody wants to get bitten by any type of animal, including mean brothers and sisters, right? So for this animal, its mouth is right there in the center. It has bristles, and that makes it kind of feel like a toothbrush, but it has no teeth at all. And actually, there is no dentist that would recommend using a horseshoe crab to brush your teeth. So definitely do not try that one at home. But that mouth can't bite. That's why they've got those little feeding legs to push food into their mouth. Now, horseshoe crabs also have some other really neat adaptations in order to survive. How many eyes do you think a horseshoe crab might have? If you said 10 eyes, you would be correct. Horseshoe crabs have 10 different eyes. Now, they have different types of eyes all over their body, but the crazy thing is that horseshoe crabs do not see very well at all. Their most well-developed eye is this eye right here. So if I'm showing you the horseshoe crab, it's the ones that look like the eyes, right? This one here and that one there. Those are the compound eyes. And those eyes are very similar to a fly's eye. So they can definitely see, and most of the time they're going to use those eyes for mating purposes, meaning they use their eyes there to find a boyfriend or a girlfriend. The other eyes are around their head, and some of them are on the underside. And what those eyes are used for is mainly to find shapes and find different levels of light as well, because it's really important for a horseshoe crab to know whether it's upside down or right side up, so that they can make sure they use their Telson to flip themselves right side up. Now, I want to do a quick experiment with you. So not only do horseshoe crabs have 10 eyes, they also have these fancy things called photoreceptors, and those are all along their Telson. Now, in order to do this experiment, I want you guys to close your eyes and look up to the ceiling or up to the sky. And then, very slowly, put your hand over your face. You don't have to touch your face, but keep your eyes closed. And then after a minute, take your hand away and keep your eyes closed. Did you guys notice a difference from when your hand was over your eyes to when you took your hand away? Yeah, I'm sure most of you did. And that's because we can detect levels of light even though our eyes are closed. And that's kind of what those photoreceptors do. So it's a really big, fancy word for meaning that they detect different levels of light as well. But horseshoe crabs don't only just have adaptations that allow them to be able to survive, they also have so many cool features that allow other animals to survive as well. One really important aspect of a horseshoe crab is their mating. So what they do is when it comes time for them to lay eggs, they all come up onto the beach in late spring, early summer, and they lay so many eggs in the sand. Now, one single female can lay up to 90,000 eggs in a single season. And other animals have become wise to this. So there are so many different animals that rely on horseshoe crab eggs as a main source of food, especially during that time period. The red knot is a really great example of that. That is a migratory bird that goes from South America all the way up to the Arctic every spring. And in the middle of their journey, they will stop in Massachusetts and Delaware to wait for the horseshoe crabs to come up and lay their eggs. And then They engorge themselves. They eat so much of those eggs that they might even double in weight. And that gives them enough fuel to finish their journey and make it all the way up north. So this is a really important type of animal that helps the red knot, which is a threatened species. So we see a lot of these types of relationships with horseshoe crabs and other animals, but horseshoe crabs will help people as well. Now, when you guys may fall down or get a paper cut, you might get scrapes. You usually, when you get cut, you see your blood, right? And mom and dad might clean that up for you. But when you see that blood, that's bright red, right? That's the color of a person's blood. But horseshoe crabs, when they bleed, their blood is blue, kind of like the blue on my shirt here. And the horseshoe crab blood has a lot of copper in it, so that when the copper binds to oxygen, it makes it this kind of pale blue color, which is really weird, right? And horseshoe crabs also have a special superpower in their blood. That's right. That's why they're underwater superheroes. So the horseshoe crabs have amoebocytes in their blood. And that's a really big word. I'm going to say it again, amoebocytes. And those amoebocytes allow horseshoe crabs to have a good immune system, so they can fight off any type of bacteria or sickness that gets into their blood. And those amoebocytes can do that because whenever they come into contact with those harmful bacteria, what they do is they create this really nice gel or a slime that goes around that bacteria or anything that's not supposed to be in their blood. And what it will do is it will immobilize or stop that bacteria from moving around and give the horseshoe crab's immune system some time to get rid of it. So it's really important for horseshoe crabs to have those amoebocytes. But what we can do is we can actually take the amoebocytes from the horseshoe crab's blood and we can use it to test medical equipment, to test pacemakers, to test surgical equipment, to test any type of shot that you may have gotten. And that means that if you've ever had surgery or you've ever gone to the doctor and gotten a shot in your arm, it might hurt, but you didn't get sick afterwards. And that's because the horseshoe crab's amoebocytes helped to test that equipment, so we knew it was safe for you to use. So horseshoe crabs are amazing. They've got really cool adaptations so they can survive. They help amazing other animals like the red knot, and they also help us to not be sick when we go to the doctor. They're absolute superheroes, and I can't say it enough. That's why they are my favorite animal on the planet. But horseshoe crabs also need a little bit of help from us as well. Like all animals, they're having a really tough time right now because the environment is not the best that it has been in the past. And so there are lots of things that we can do to help horseshoe crabs and all animals. Right now especially, it is really important for us to go out on walks and walk around our house and just get outside to take in the sun and take in the fresh air. And when we do that, what you can do is you can take a bag with you, and if it's safe to do so, you can pick up trash along the way. And just by picking up a few pieces of trash, that can really help out the ocean and help out horseshoe crabs and keep the environment really clean as well. But if you're ever on the beach and you tend to see a horseshoe crab upside down, what you can do is you can help it out by picking it up kind of like this on either side, and then you can flip it right side up and put it back near the ocean. And if it's strong enough, it will go out into the surf and it will continue in the ocean doing its horseshoe crab thing. But not every single horseshoe crab that you see on the beach is going to be one that you should put back in the ocean, because horseshoe crabs can molt their exoskeleton. So this exoskeleton is the hard covering that goes throughout the entire body of the horseshoe crab. And I mentioned earlier that this is just the empty shell. we see these wash up a lot on our beaches here in North Carolina. And one way to tell if it is a molt or if it's a live horseshoe crab, you can look right there at the top. You see how this top part kind of pulls apart a little bit? If it pulls apart a little bit at the top, that means it's just an empty shell and a horseshoe crab has come out of it. Kind of like a snake sheds its scales, a horseshoe crab will shed its exoskeleton, its shell, when it's time to grow. And it takes about 10 years for a horseshoe crab to reach full maturity. So they have to go through quite a few molts in order to get to that point. But if you see a molt that is on the beach and you want to take it home, I encourage you to look at the first little leg that you can see. That first leg is what tells you whether you have a molt of a boy horseshoe crab or a girl horseshoe crab. So the male horseshoe crabs have a hook-like appendage. It almost looks like a boxing glove as that first leg. But the girl or the female horseshoe crabs, they have pinchers that look all the exact same. So you can see how all of these pinchers are the exact same. That tells me I'm looking at a girl. So that's a little bit about the amazing, wonderful, fantastic horseshoe crab and why they are true underwater superheroes and why they are also my favorite animal. Now, thank you guys so much for spending some time with me this afternoon. If you have any questions, if you could put them in the comments and we will be answering them as we go through. Thanks, guys. Bye.